Greetings, one and all. Welcome back to another Icing on the Skate podcast. I am, of course, joined by the Nottingham Lions commentator and overall mediocre guy, Chris Gadsby. I knew you would hate that. I've been thinking about saying that all day. How you doing, Chris? Now, so for those of you watching on YouTube, we're having a couple of problems with getting Skype into OBS. I've been trying to look it up for the last 2 hours, and nothing's really been working. So I decided to get an honorary Chris photo stuck up on here for you. So he is here. He's here in spirit. Well, he is actually here because you can hear him, I think. Just say something for me, please, Chris.
Yes, I'm here.
You're not actually coming up on this. Oh, come on. Are we getting something else going wrong here? Okay, so you're not actually coming up on the audio. That's helpful. Right. Can people actually hear you?
I don't know. Can everyone hear me?
No, I don't think they can. Oh, this is helpful. Okay, wow, everything's moving so slowly on this computer. Yeah, your mic is working. I just don't know. I can't remember how to get it. Oh, I'm going to have to go through all this now, aren't I? So first the video stops working, then the audio stops working. I just can't get any help here nowadays, can I? Oh, we can hear you very, very faintly. Okay. Okay, let me just...
The Icing on the Skate text podcast.
Yes. Let me just...
So you can hear me, but they can't.
I can hear you fine. I think I've just got to do one quick thing. It's got to go into... Okay, now OBS is crashing. That's really helpful. Oh my god. Okay, no, are we back? Are we good?
Oh,
are we okay?
Chris, tell us this week's score. Oh, I need to get that up, actually.
Right, okay, wait. It's crashed again. Oh. So we did have something there from the desktop for a minute. I think I know how to do. The settings changed. Cancel. I want to... Just keep talking for me, Chris.
Hello. This is me trying to talk for ages on something that's not really going very well. Just like the Lions, really.
There we go. Right, I think I got you back now. Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, okay, right, I think we're good. Okay, right. So,
whoop.
Greetings, one and all. Welcome to the Icing on the Skate podcast. Sorry for the few issues we're having. We've got Chris and Spirit over here on the right-hand side of the screen. You've got me normally. Wow, there is a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
What day are we even on? We're on what, the 1st of October? Right.
It's 1st of October. The Elite League season's been going for less than a month.
Yeah, I was just making sure I got the right days for the results, that was all.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's the 1st of October today. Pinch punch 1st of the month to everybody watching right now. So there was some really, really, really big news that came out of Sheffield today. Chris, would you like to elaborate on what took place?
Yes, so the head coach has decided to leave the Sheffield Steelers, probably before he was pushed, but he has... yes, Tomo has left the Sheffield Steelers.
Yep, so head coach Paul Thompson and general manager as well, Paul Thompson, has left the club. I believe the reasoning was due to family reasons. I'm going to try and bring up the thing now just so we can take a look. Yeah, so
I haven't read the full thing yet.
Yeah, this is pretty crazy. Of course, there was a big sort of hashtag Tomo out movement going on in Sheffield, considering they've had a pretty poor start to the league this year. However, I think I made it quite clear on what I said during the well, I wrote it on Twitter, to be honest, but I thought that they were going to wait until the end of the season before doing this. I think
yes, you said that last week.
Yeah, like we literally said like maybe use him till the end of the season, then see what happens. Right, okay. So I've got... Right, I'm just going to click on the article now. Yeah, so this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy, the fact that he's left. I believe that Mark Matheson, who was a player coach, is becoming the interim head coach. Yep. So that will be very interesting. It's essentially Mathers' system now until they find somebody else.
No.
I guess the situation will be if Matheson does quite well as the coach and the team is winning games, then they might keep him on as the coach. If not, then they'll find somebody else to try and replace him, I could imagine. But let me just bring up
Yeah,
this
he's
article.
left the club for personal reasons.
Yes, personal reasons. Quote, unquote, personal reasons, which means he probably got booted out and they didn't want to admit it. So, Sheffield Steelers have announced that head coach Paul Thompson has left the club for personal reasons. Thompson joined the Steelers in 2015, guiding the Yorkshire side to the 2016 League Championship, also winning the EIHL playoff crown in 2017. The Steelers have confirmed that player assistant coach Mark Matheson will take on coaching duties in the interim period until a new head coach is appointed. A further statement is expected from the club shortly. They've probably already released that, but I'm looking on the Elite League website, so there you go. So,
Fair
Chris,
enough.
what do you think about this?
It kind of came out of nowhere. Like, I know
really
they
did.
haven't been like playing particularly well, but I really wasn't expecting, that kind of pull the trigger. That kind of strikes me as more of a football thing to pull the trigger on a head coach so soon into a season.
Yeah.
I think that, like, if it's for personal family reasons, then I mean, we don't know what those are. I would like to think that there's actually some. I would like to think there's actually some family personal reasons more than like because of all the abuse he was getting.
Yeah, so you hope that it's not just an excuse, like there is actually something that's
Well, no, I mean
going on there.
what I'm saying is that yeah, I hope there is something actually going on, but
Yeah.
I would hope it's something going on rather than him not being able to deal with the abuse anymore, because if he's been driven out and he can't do it anymore because of the abuse from the fans, then that's really sad.
Yeah.
I would rather something have gone on that means he has to leave rather than it just being this barrage of abuse that's been coming in that he just can't deal with anymore. Whether that's been escalating around to his family and stuff as well, I don't know, but it is very sad if that's the reason.
That's a good point, actually. A lot of people have said that might potentially be something that's happened. If that is the case, that's absolutely awful. I don't think anybody wants that at all for anybody. And we've talked before because, of course, the Sheffield Steelers have swapped their players around every once in a while.
Yeah.
They've already got rid of the Rupert brothers. They brought in Brooks. They brought in another player that we'll talk about briefly later. But like we've mentioned how tough it is to find players at this point, especially high potential, high talent players, because most of the teams, like the off season's over, like we're in the season now. People are essentially trying to find those players, or they've already been found by other teams. So it's, I guess the situation is like, how does this work for coaches? Are there more coaches available when the season starts because there's some that might not have got jobs? Are there other coaches? Are there no coaches available? It's a really interesting situation. I don't know what you think, Chris.
Any coach that comes in is still going to have that group of players.
Yeah.
So, and unless it's a coach that knows the league, they're going to be thrown into their first few games not knowing the league and probably still have the same result.
Yeah, fair.
It's just sad, really, to be honest.
So, I mean, we've been critical of the Steelers, especially this season, because, I mean, they haven't played very well by their standards and by the league standards and by fan standards. So, it might come across that we are specifically, like, don't like the Sheffield Steelers. That's not what, especially for me, that's not the case at all. I can't speak for you guys, obviously. But,
no, I mean, I don't, obviously being a Nottingham Panthers fan, during the, whatever it is, 2 hours 20 that the game lasts, I don't like the Steelers.
Yeah.
However, as soon as the final buzzer goes, all their fans, all their players, all their management are just ordinary people like you and me.
Exactly, yeah.
And so outside of the ice, I have got absolutely, no problem with the Steelers. I mean, because it's the same with any sport. They support Sheffield mainly because a lot of them are from Sheffield. There's no reason for me to dislike them just because I'm from a different part of the country.
It's very much a I think like 99% of Steelers, Panthers, Devils, like any fan of the sport in this league, 99% of the people will have that exact same viewpoint as you do. I very much have that viewpoint as well. Of course, there are a few that like to sort of, once the game is over, still like rub the salt in the wound,
Oh yeah,
or
but you
try
get
to
that
make
in
it more
anything.
than just a game. But I think I speak for both of us here when I wish Paul Thompson the best of luck.
Of course, yeah.
If there's anything going on behind the scenes, I hope that gets sorted out, and I hope it comes to a good conclusion, a positive conclusion. If he finds more work, then good luck to him, whether it's in this league or another league. I personally didn't really have a huge problem with Paul Thompson. A lot of social media was definitely saying that he was the problem. I wasn't in that sphere, so I wouldn't know. Do I think he was part of the problem? Yeah, perhaps. Perhaps he was. But I don't think you can hold a coach wholly accountable for a team not playing very well. That's just my opinion. I've made videos on this before. Like, the coach is the easiest scapegoat in any league.
Yes.
If a team starts 0-5 to start the season, they're immediately going to go, it's the coach's fault. Which I can agree to an extent, but I think they can't go out there and play on the ice for the players. Like, the players have to be held accountable to an extent. And what you see from quite a lot of these players is that they do feel accountable, especially when a coach gets fired. They think, whoa, like, they start to feel a little bit guilty. Because, especially the players that care about the team, they'll be like, oh, hang on a minute. We kind of made that happen. Like, that's our fault. So, it'll be very interesting.
Yeah.
The drama in the Sheffield Steelers organisation just keeps on going. Every single week we do a podcast in this, there's another bit of controversy to talk about, or another question, which is incredibly fascinating, I think.
I think, just consider, I mean, obviously I'm in a privileged position getting behind the scenes in not just in ice hockey, but in football as well.
Yeah.
And there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that people just don't consider.
Yeah.
So on the face of it, it seems right. You've got a coach in, he signs players, why aren't they playing well? His fault.
Yeah.
What you've got to consider is the fact that the coach will have a budget. It may not be the budget he wants. He's then got to try and get all signings through the GM and negotiate with the GM and all the staff that are around. And then you've got, the assistant coach, and you've got to talk to the players as well. Is this player going to fit? And he's not necessarily going to get the players that he wants in. He's got the players that he's allowed to get in.
Just to sort of clarify a point, he was also doing the role of general manager in the Steelers organisation. However, he has stepped down from all roles in the Steelers organisation. So he stepped down as the head coach, as the general manager, whatever other roles he had. He's completely, essentially cut ties with the Steelers organisation. But to your point, I mean, the Steelers is owned by Tony Smith, who's also the chairman of the league. So
I'm just talking in general in all kind of sports teams. That's how it.
Yeah, I think more specific to this context though, I could very well imagine that Tony Smith has a big say on who gets signed to the Steelers roster. I can very much imagine there are some owners that they have full faith in their general managers and go, you know what, you've got this, you've got years of experience, you're a close friend of mine, I trust you with my life, blah blah blah. Whatever reasoning they have, they'll go, yep, I trust you wholeheartedly. Go ahead and make me a roster and win me a championship. I don't think Tony Smith is that kind of guy. Purely because he runs the league. Like, he's the chairman of the Elite League. He's not just going to let Paul Thompson get on with it, if you know what I mean. Like, he's going to want to be in every meeting, talk to every player. I would imagine anyway. I don't have any proof of that, but I can imagine Tony Smith's that kind of guy. He's very active. So, yeah.
Yeah, and there is getting that balance between being the chairman and and getting too involved in things that don't really come into your job description.
Yes, if an owner wants to have more say in that stuff, hire yourself as the general manager. Like, don't hire a general manager if you want to do his job. I don't know whether that was the situation here. I could very well imagine it wasn't. I can imagine that Tony Smith just wanted to have a bit of a say in what was going on. And ultimately, the Steelers, Paul Thompson relationship has fallen apart. Very much, it's been a very rapid decline since the start of the season. I think the writing was on the wall when that article came out on the Elite League, where Thompson basically threw all of his players under the bus. He basically said, "We're going to make some big changes to this lineup." It's not good
there
enough,
was
blah, blah,
that.
blah. Yeah, I think the writing was on the wall at that point, to be honest. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
which is sad, but
It's very
I
sad.
mean, every team has to have. I mean, if I take it to football momentarily, it does link to the ice hockey this week. Have you seen the
Yeah.
article about the Coventry Blaze?
No, I haven't.
It's very brief, so I'll say it quickly. The Coventry City football goalkeeper went to a
Oh,
Coventry Blaze game and got
yes,
hit in
yes,
the
I did
head
hear
with a
about that.
puck.
Yeah, yeah,
So he was training last night with a bandage on his head. But you have it in all sports. Like Manchester United aren't at the top of the Premiership every single year.
yeah.
They have the odd season where they don't win any trophies, they don't get into Europe and all the rest of it. So, you can't have a team always at the
Yeah,
top.
because then nobody would watch it. Nobody
Yeah,
would watch it
exactly.
if nobody would watch sports if the outcome was already decided before the season began. Golden
Yeah.
State Warriors NBA. But yeah, okay. So I think that's enough on the Tony Smith
Yep.
situation. Let us know in the chat what you think about not Tony Smith, about Tomo. What am I on about? About the Sheffield
Can't relate.
Steelers looking for a new head coach. Who do you think would be good to replace him? Let us know in the chat. If you're listening on Spotify, you can't. So let's move on to the
Should
scores.
be here live.
Do you have the scores there, Chris?
I've got the scores, yes.
Wonderful. Would you like to take us through them, please?
Yeah,
my
so we
man?
started on Wednesday, and the live televised game, which peaked at 100,000 people watching
Woo!
the Nottingham Panthers against the
Damn!
Cardiff Devils. What a comeback that was for the Panthers,
Yeah,
scoring
what a
the winner
game.
with 40 seconds to go. Elsewhere on Wednesday night, the Sheffield Steelers beat the Dundee Stars by 3-2.
Yep.
Then we
I
move
believe that
forward.
went to penalty shots, didn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah, it went to penalty shots. Yeah, yeah.
We
'Cause,
move forward to Friday
Dundee
night.
yeah,
Sorry.
Dundee were 2-0 up. Then Sheffield tied it, won it in penalty
Yeah.
shots. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. On to Friday, just the one game where Belfast beat Dundee by 2-1.
No surprise.
Moving on to Saturday,
Okay.
10 teams in action. The Coventry Blaze beat the Glasgow Clan 2-1. The Storm beat the Lightning 4-1.
Okay.
Did you see the Storm on their live stream had the Milton Keynes Lightning down as MLK?
Really?
Yeah, and then they changed it midway through the second after someone pointed it
I
out.
didn't realise Martin Luther King still played hockey.
And then on Saturday, the Dundee Stars actually beat the Giants 5-3 at home.
Finally! How many games have they played against Belfast? Jesus.
At least they won't have to do
wow.
any more flying after like the first few weeks.
Yeah.
And then the Guildford Flames lost to the Devils by 5-2, and the Steelers beat the Panthers by 3-2.
Yes, they did. That was a.
On to
I want to have a chat about that game after you've spoken.
yeah,
about
we'll
the
do.
rest
Just
of them.
got Sunday to do,
Yeah, go for it.
which is Milton Keynes beating Dundee by 3-2. The
Yeah.
Coventry Blaze beat the Sheffield Steelers by 5-2.
Tomo's last game.
Yeah, the Guildford Flames lost to the Panthers by 3-2.
That
The
sounds
Cardiff
like a good game.
Devils thrashed the Glasgow Clan 8-1, and the
Oh.
Fife Flyers beat the Manchester Storm by 7-2.
Yeah. So.
Do you want to talk about the games before I do the standings?
No, do the standings first. Do the standings first.
Okay, starting then in the Elite League, and the Nottingham Panthers are 5 points clear at the top of the Elite League table with 12 points. The Five Flyers are behind them on 7, although they do have 4 games in hand, so they could
yeah.
get to 15. The Coventry Blaze also on 7 points, having played 4 games. The Cardiff Devils have played 4 games. They've got 6. The Sheffield Steelers, 3 wins, 4 losses for 6 points from their 7 games. The Stars are in 6th with 5. The Guildford Flames are in 7th with 4 points. The Glasgow Clan also on 4 points. They hold the final playoff spot at the moment. And then it's the Storm and the Lightning. Both also have 4. And then the Belfast Giants are at the foot of the table. 4 games played, only the single win. But again, the Panthers on the top of the table, but only because they've played more games than anybody else in the league so far.
Well, and they've won more games, but only because they've played well.
Yeah, well, I
in
mean,
more games.
yeah, like
So-
Fife are in second, they're only 5 points behind, but they've only played half the number of games. If
Yeah,
Fife were to
exactly.
win their games in hand, they'd go 3 points ahead of Panthers.
Exactly. I must say though, Belfast at the bottom of the league is incredibly interesting.
They've only played those 4 games.
But I mean, they've played as many games as most of the teams in the table at the moment.
Yeah,
To be fair, they've had a very like they've done well for the Challenge Cup. I mean, they won the Challenge Cup last year, didn't they?
Belfast did, yeah, they won it in Cardiff.
Yeah, they won against Cardiff. I just wanted to make sure I was right on that. Yeah, I watched the game. Yeah, so Belfast won the Challenge Cup last year. It looks like they're going to put up a good title defence this year.
Yeah, 4-1 from their 5 games.
Exactly. So they're pretty much through the Challenge Cup.
Yeah.
However, the regular season they've had a very bad start. Who have they played in the regular season? They've played. I know they've played Nottingham. They lost.
Yeah. They've surely played Dundee.
Yeah, and I think that might have been the game last night actually.
Yeah.
Wait. Did Dundee play Belfast last night again? Sorry, I can't remember.
No, it's Saturday night that Dundee
Sorry, my
played
bad.
Belfast.
Yeah. No, I was obviously right. It was Fife that beat them, wasn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just getting the standings
This
up.
is very interesting. This is a very interesting table after the first sort of month or so of Elite League action.
Yeah, it's not what I expected. I must be honest.
Yeah, and I think this once again, like we say every week, goes hand in hand with the whole. This is the most competitive Elite League I think we've had in a very long time.
That's good.
It's great. I'm loving it. Yeah, let's keep it up.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, because the Panthers are at the top, and I won't complain with that.
No, but
and plus, like, we've got some interesting teams jumping higher up the standings that they might not have been before.
Yeah, weren't expecting, Fife and Coventry to be up there in the...
Exactly.
Yeah, so they've lost to the Panthers in the league, the Flyers in the league, and the Stars in the league, but they beat...
Wow.
But they beat the Stars in the league as well. So the Panthers, the Flyers, and the Stars.
Okay, so there's a lot... Well, I mean, they've still got the Devils and Steelers, and then they've got Coventry and MK Guildford. So they've basically got most of the English teams and Cardiff left to play. And they've got Glasgow as well, but
they've got two double headers against Milton Keynes in the next fortnight as well.
They'll probably win those, to be fair.
Yeah,
they'll probably win those. So yeah, that's a very interesting league table. Of course, we'll need to wait to see the games in hand to determine sort of where each team is at realistically. We could make predictions all we want on sort of who's going to win, who's not going to win, but I don't think that's really going to help at this moment in time.
That's one thing I find interesting around the EIHL is that, like, when you have in football, you all play league games and you have a designated weekend that's cup weekend.
Yeah.
Whereas in like the Elite League, that kind of doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
It's literally all over the place.
I find it.
I mean, I know
confusing.
that's a lot with that is to do with like ice time and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But like in Group A, Sheffield have played 4, so they've played Panthers and Storm twice each.
Yeah.
And the Panthers and Storm have both played them twice, but the Panthers and Storm haven't played each other. They've not caught up. Like Sheffield, they've played their 4 Challenge Cup games. They've played their 4 Challenge Cup games.
They've got 5 points, haven't they? They've got 2 wins.
So they can't do anything else. Yeah, they can't do anything else.
Yeah, so I find it incredibly confusing. I have to keep checking up like which games are Challenge Cup games and which ones are league games. I think
that Sheffield are guaranteed to get into the knockout stages though, because Panthers and Storm can't both win both games.
Yeah, I can't remember. I was watching the Steelers webcast of the Steelers-Panthers game on Saturday, and I think it was Jonathan Fernley explained the whole Challenge Cup situation, because of course there's only 11 teams in the league now as opposed to 12. I found it incredibly confusing. I was just like when he said it, it's like, yeah, that makes sense, and then I like went 20 minutes later, was like, hang on a minute, what? So it's I don't know. So yeah, interesting league standing positions going on there. We've of course got some more games this week / this weekend to see what happens. I can imagine the Panthers might be playing some Challenge Cup games soon because they're way ahead, or they're getting like one game a week scenarios.
Yeah. Okay. So, oh yes, it does allow me to differentiate. There we go.
Hey.
Right. So in the I don't want to go all the way through September. Here we go. Right. So league games we have. On Wednesday, Dundee, Cardiff.
Right.
Is that on Free Sports?
No, they do them every other week, don't they?
Oh, yes. And then Friday is Belfast, Milton Keynes.
Right.
Then Saturday is Guildford, Dundee, Cardiff, Manchester, Sheffield, Glasgow, Panthers, Blaze, and Giants, Lightning. Then on Sunday, gone too far. On Sunday, it's Stars, Flames, Blaze, Giants, Lightning, Panthers, Storm, Clan, and Flyers, Sheffield. If we look at the Challenge Cup for the next week, I mean, quite a lot of teams are in action there both weekends.
Yeah, but Panthers, they playing the Blaze and Milton Keynes, I think, next week.
Yes,
weekend.
so
and they're both
one
league
of those games between the Storm and the Panthers is in the Challenge Cup on Wednesday night in Manchester. Right. Then in the Cup as well on Friday, you've got the Clan against the Flyers. Those are the only 2 Challenge Cup games, though.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Challenge Cup. Who knows? League. Let's keep playing games. That's the summary. I think we should move on because we're already half an hour into this. So shall we just quickly wrap up all of the quote transactions that have taken place in the league? They'll take like two seconds, really, won't they? So, the first one, the Sheffield Steelers. This was before Tomo decided to leave. So they signed forward Ryan Martindale, who has now brought the Sheffield Steelers back up to a full complement of players after letting the Rupert brothers go. Of course, they signed Brendan Brooks last week or a week before, and Ryan Martindale, he scored in his debut in the Challenge Cup game against the Nottingham Panthers. Well played by the Nottingham Panthers to pick him up. He scored in his debut. I don't know if he had any points last night. I didn't quite check, but they decided to pick him up. I think he's played in the ECHL, was his most recent playing time. So good job to the Steelers. I mean, they're back up to a full list of players. Let's see what happens, I guess. Also, the Coventry Blaze decided to sign goaltender Miroslav Kopriva. Yeah, I think so. Kopriva. This was in the wake of the news that Mika Vikman will be injured for several weeks due to an injury. So, Vikman
will be injured for several weeks due to an injury.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
You could be on Sky Sports with analysis like that.
I'm probably better than most of the Elite League webcasters at the moment. So, Miroslav Kopriva, the goaltender, he's been signed. I don't know if he played this weekend, and one of my posters has just fallen off the wall. That's wonderful.
That's great.
Then the last signing this week was the Nottingham Panthers have signed forward Tyler Van Cleef to a short 1-month deal, I believe. And this was as a result of John Rowe being injured for the next few months. I think they said 10 to 12 weeks was the next time they'd sort of see if he's ready. So, interesting. Okay, and the last bit of Elite League stuff we should talk about today is to do with the officiating. I always like to chuck in an interesting debate, an interesting question that we can talk about every week.
Yeah.
And this is the one for this week. So, this was inspired by the Steelers-Panthers game that I watched on Saturday, the Challenge Cup game. And the officiating was absolutely awful in that game, just to put it bluntly. It was some of the worst officiating I think I've seen in quite a while.
Who were they?
To be fair, I can't remember the exact people. You'd have to look.
I'll go and have a look.
Yeah, awesome. I must admit, it's been the off-season, so of course I haven't seen much hockey before September for quite a while. But yeah, that was some pretty poor officiating. Now, of course, I am a Panthers fan first, a Steelers fan second. I like to think I'm quite impartial on quite a lot of topics. Sure, I show my bias, but I always make it clear that I'm showing my bias, if that makes sense. The refs and their missed calls on so many headshots that the Panthers made towards the Sheffield Steelers was absolutely disgusting. It needs to be sorted out. After the Frettergate scandal last year, I thought there was going to be some sort of improvement to the officiating and to the Department of Player Safety. And there has been an improvement. Like, there has been some improvement, but then you see a game like last night, two teams that you know that are going to go really, really, really heavily against each other. That's the sort of game where the officiating needs to be on top form. And it wasn't on its top form on Saturday. It was atrocious. There's two Panthers players that were suspended for at least a game as a result of that, as a result of what they did in that game. I just can't understand how the officiating was that bad. The calls are right in front of you. The problem was, and the problem with the Elite League in general, I think, with their officiating, the general question is, has the officiating gotten better or worse compared to last season? I don't really know the answer to that, but the Elite League, the problem that they have is they'll call the really awful stuff and miss the really obvious stuff. Like, how does that work? How does a referee go into a game going, oh, well, that guy just hit and elbowed that guy in the face. Well, I can't call that. Oh, but you kind of tugged on his stick a little bit there. Right, you're going in the box for 2 minutes. Like, there's no consistency. There's no consistency in quite a lot of the calls. And I know I'm only using the Sheffield-Nottingham game as my prime example at the moment, because that's the one that I'm most keyed up about at the moment. But oh my goodness, the officiating was awful. There have been other games where the officiating's been a bit spotty. Granted, there has been some games where I think the officiating has been top notch. I've watched several games this season. I don't know about you, Chris, but the Panthers Devils game that took place on Free Sports, that was relatively well officiated, right? There wasn't anything that I came out of that thinking that was disgraceful. How dare you miss that call, right? I'm not the only one, right?
No, I think. Before I go too far into this, refereeing is a hard job.
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
It's a very difficult job.
I'm not
contradicting you. What I'm saying is, I mean, I'm just looking at the game sheet now. The two referees, Liam Sewell and Matt Thompson.
Right.
Now, I've never heard of either of them.
No.
Now, if it was me and I was head of officiating a Steelers-Panthers game, I would put a Hicks or a Darnell in there at least.
You need to have somebody that's been round the circuit a few times, that's experienced. Because I think any fan of any team in the league would know that a game between those two teams can get very, very scrappy. And there were several points during that webcast where it got quite close. Like there wasn't anything super crazy out of the blue that happened between these two teams, but it was getting close. And I know that the Department of Player Safety has been doing a lot of training to young referees recently. Like, to begin this season, they've wanted to bring in, like, the new generation of referees and bring in loads of new young referees to kind of bring up the next group. However, they don't have the experience of officiating an EIHL game. What they really need to do is have an experienced guy with a more rookie guy. Then the person learns from the other person on the job. Like that, the master and the apprentice. Like why don't the league do that? Like, that makes the most sense. Like, it's so common sense to do. And of course, there's always the issue of, well, can these two specific players travel to one of those games? Can they have the accommodation? Do they live near? Blah, 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 blah. I get all of that. But I want to... Chris, what's your answer to the question? Do you think officiating's gotten better or worse since last season? Especially with things like the Nickerson ban that I did a video on, the Frettergate scandal that took place last season. I want to know, what do you think, Chris?
I've only seen one game in person this season, and the officiating on that was fine.
Yeah.
The ones I've seen on TV, again, they were all right. You know, I mean, they missed a couple of bits, but, you know, they got quite a lot right. Yeah. And without the video replays and all the rest of it and being able to have a check and all that lot, I think we've spoken before about if we're going to develop the young players and how we have to feed them through the junior systems in the right way. We have to do the same with the referees.
Yes, definitely.
You can't just chuck referees in to the top games. I was a bit at the Lions. The referee we had last night, we had 71 penalty minutes.
Yeah.
And one of them was for a bench penalty at the end of the game. Something to do with shaking hands. Everyone was going along the line shaking hands, and all of a sudden we get a bench penalty.
Oh my goodness.
And okay, some of it is down to the players. I mean, we had one player with who got a misconduct because an icing call didn't go his way, and he, in a sense, just for a tantrum. I'm not going to lie, it was a tantrum.
Yes, I was listening to the live stream at that point. It sounded very interesting.
it was interesting, but then when you get misconducts for when you have the seal or the A on your chest and you're talking to the referee, and then all of a sudden, I mean, I'm obviously in the commentary position, so I can't hear what was being said, but all of us they're having a chat with the referee about a decision, and then all of a sudden they're given a 10-minute misconduct.
Yeah.
And I'm there thinking, okay, I have absolutely no clue what that was for. All seemed relatively normal to me, and I think again because the money's not in it in the same way as there is like football, because football every single game has a referee's assessor there. And they sit down at the end of every game, they watch the tape, they go through every decision and go, right, what did you think of this bit when you called it? Do you think it was right?
Yeah.
Do you think it was wrong? All the rest of it. And obviously they don't do that in the ice hockey. So it's, apart from like the occasional refereeing course that's I think 2 or 3 times a year from what I've seen on the social media, how are they supposed to improve?
It's very true. I think... because like we said, there have been many games this season that the officiating's been fine. But my sort of closing statement on this, the referees, of course, are there to enforce the rules and penalise the players that don't enforce the rules. That's essentially their job, right?
Yes.
Most of the games that are played, the players aren't looking to break the rules. Sure, they might accidentally do something, or they might do something in the moment, and the ref goes, right, okay, yeah, you need a penalty, you can't actually do that.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the players go, yeah, that's fine. But when the emotion of the players and the testosterone of the players gets into it, aka a Panthers or a Steelers game, or name any other fierce rivalry in the Elite League, when there's that in it, the referees... Like 95, like, okay, 50, 75% of the games that those refs will officiate this season, the players aren't looking to break the rules. The players aren't looking to do something stupid, so it's going to be a relatively
The majority of the rules that the players will break in the majority of the games are things like going for a poke check and accidentally tripping and stuff like that.
Exactly. Like, for the majority of the games that each of them officiate this season, it's going to be all about, like, it's going to be just another day at work for them. But then you get a Panthers and a Steelers game that you know there's going to be some extracurricular activity going on there. You know there's going to be like punching attempts or sort of pushing and shoving at the end of every single whistle. You know there's going to be the teams chirping at each other. That's when you need to make sure you're enforcing the rule.
And like, for example, playoff games.
Those are the games that the referees are paid for. You know? That's why you need the referees. Those are the games that they're the most important people on the ice. And if they can't live up to the job, they shouldn't be there. And I don't want to say that the referees that were there didn't live up to the job. They just missed so many very dangerous hits. Like they weren't just little like interference penalties. These were elbows to the head kind of stuff.
Has the Department of Player Safety put those videos out yet?
Yes, I believe they uploaded them today.
Did they? I need to go and watch those.
Yeah, I saw it again on my feed. So, as a result of that, just in case you were wondering as to why, Wrestling got suspended a game that was served against Guildford yesterday. And then Tyler Biggs got suspended 2 games. One of them was against Guildford yesterday, so he's got 1 game left. I have no doubt that being a ref is difficult. I completely agree with that. But like you said, Chris, I don't think you can chuck two inexperienced referees now that we're with the 4-man system. You can't throw them both into a Panthers-Steelers game and go figure it out as you go along, because that's going to jeopardize the safety of the players, and that's something that the league has to be clear that's one of their main focuses, making sure the game is good and swift, but also making sure that the players are as safe as they possibly can be. Of course there's going to be injuries. Of course there's going to be accidents. Like, it's a contact sport. Those things are going to happen. But the job of the referee is to enforce the rules and make sure that the players are as safe as they possibly can be at all times. And I think there were times in that game where that wasn't happening. And I find it quite disappointing, to be honest.
Holy moly!
Yeah, you see what I mean? Chris has just seen the videos.
I'm just watching the Riesling one.
You can see why the suspensions were handed out, right?
To be fair, on the Riesling one, I'm not sure he was aware he was there. He was looking nowhere near it.
True, yeah.
He was watching. I'm not saying that obviously that's
which is why
the
it was
right
only
thing.
1 game.
Yeah,
You know, and
yeah,
that's served. That's done.
yeah. Right. Well, that was the Tyler Biggs one, wasn't it? The other one.
Yeah, the Tyler Biggs was 2 games, but there were several other players that did similar stuff to that. And of course, like I've said on this podcast like loads of times, I'm a Nottingham Panthers fan first, but like,
Yeah.
I can't let my affiliation to the or my support to the Nottingham Panthers cloud my
Oh, that's
judgment in something
nasty
like
as
this.
well.
It's not fair, you know.
Yeah, that's
So
nasty because he had no clue that Biggs was coming there.
exactly, and there was 1 or 2 other dodgy plays like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised there were suspensions. I'll pass the question off to you in the live chat on YouTube. Do you think that officiating's gotten better or worse? We can also pick this up at the end when we answer some viewer questions. If you have some questions, leave them till the end and we'll have a look at them. We are looking at the chat, but we have a lot to talk about, so we're very much just speeding through stuff.
The big league starting on Wednesday.
Yes, the NHL is beginning in 2 days, ladies and gentlemen. I am so excited. I am so excited to see the NHL back. The best hockey available is coming back. The 18-19 regular season begins the 3rd of October. So,
Whoop, whoop.
like we said at the end of last week,
where's those?
We've got a couple of predictions we want to make.
Have we?
Yeah. Well,
do I need another piece of paper?
Yeah, well, sort of in terms of like who we think are going to win trophies or
Toronto.
So we have a couple of predictions to make, but there's a couple of other topics I want to just talk about briefly.
Okay.
Because I want to spend some time on the predictions so we have a chance to think about it.
Okay. Can we talk about the Flyers' new mascot?
Yes.
It's Animal. It's Animal from the Muppets.
Yes. So for those of you who are unaware, like for example, if you haven't heard about this, you're probably living under a rock, or you just don't look at social media at all. In which case, fair play. The Philadelphia Flyers have announced a new mascot called Gritty, and he looks like a Muppet that's had a drug addiction for the last 20 years.
Yeah. He looks like Animal from the Muppets, who's got a massive beer belly.
Yes. I don't want to show a picture just in case there's any copyright problems there, but
just type in the Flyers' new mascot and it will come
Flyers
up,
Gritty.
and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah. I think it's absolutely disgusting.
Oh no, trust me, there are worse mascots.
Oh yeah, there are definitely worse mascots.
Go on Google and look for Inverness Caledonian Thistle's mascot. It's so terrifying.
Oh goodness.
It's so terrifying.
So yeah, I don't know what I think about mascots in the NHL. I got to be honest. I mean, I get why they're there to like pump up the crowd and sort of have like I get why they're in sports. I just don't really see the point in them, to be honest. They're not my cup of tea, really. What do you think?
It's more for the kids, really, isn't it?
Oh yeah, of course. But is that for the kids, Chris? Is Gritty for the kids?
Okay, no. But
Gritty's for the strippers.
I'm thinking something like Paws.
Yeah,
the kids will love it.
Yeah.
And as again, Robin Hood with Nottingham Forest, and they do some good stuff because they do like mascot mile races and raise money for charity and that sort of thing, and they're recognisable. But I mean, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're quite good for pumping up the crowd before the game or keeping the crowd interested in between periods and things like that. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think a good mascot can really help like an atmosphere in an arena. I just don't understand. Like, Philadelphia has this reputation of being like one of those places that you try and avoid, and the people there are a bit like, oh, I want to take a step back. Having a mascot like Gritty really doesn't help that. The thing is, Philadelphia, from what I've seen, the city of Philadelphia embraces this. They love the fact that everybody hates them, so they go and make a mascot that looks disgusting to be like,
I know.
Look how awful we are. Laugh at us more. It's incredibly interesting. So yeah, go and take a look at Gritty if you haven't done so already. He is an incredibly interesting mascot. I must admit I've loved the memes that have come out of the creation of Gritty.
I've not seen any of the memes.
Oh, the hockey community have been on it with their Gritty memes, and I
Oh,
love
I'm looking
it.
for some of these.
I love it. Okay, so let's move on to the other question before we get into our NHL predictions. William Nylander. Though some of you may or may not know that William Nylander, the forward for the Toronto Maple Leafs, is still a restricted free agent at the time of this podcast going out. It's 2 days before the start of the regular season. Him and Nick Ritchie, I believe, of the Anaheim Ducks, are both still restricted free agents. William Nylander especially getting a lot of attention, being part of the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. I guess the question is, does William Nylander get signed before the start of the season? I've been looking a lot of Sportsnet and other NHL Network videos and everything based on William Nylander. From what I've heard, there's the Carl Dubas, the Maple Leafs GM, wants to sign Nylander long term. Oh, excuse me, and he wants to sign him to about $6.5 million a season. However, William Nylander or William Nylander's agent feels like they're worth a little bit more than that. So there's a bit of a conflict in terms of the overall money a season and the term, perhaps. So,
The thing is Toronto have reduced their roster down to 23 this afternoon.
Oh yeah, well that's because they're getting ready for that opening night roster.
Yeah.
So pre-season's come and gone. They've taken a look at all the players they wanted. They've seen all the players that they want to keep on the roster. They traded Connor Carrick away for a 7th round pick to Dallas, I think, because he was going through waivers. So yeah, I guess that I'm really interested to see what happens to William Nylander here, because of course Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, they're going to be RFAs at the end of this season. Those two, I can full well imagine that Kyle Dubas will want to prioritise signing those two. Like, if you had to have 2 out of the 3, you'd want Matthews and Marner, because they are
you
more.
Would.
Matthews is a superstar, Marner is a superstar, and the two of them work really well together, either as a 1-2 punch or on the same line. So I can see why Nylander or Nylander's agent might feel like, well, either you give us the money, or we're going to go to a team that will give us the money. They haven't. Go for it.
Someone will sign him and he'll play this season.
Yeah, so
I'm not sure if it's with Toronto though, because like you say, you'd have Matthews and Marner. I mean, I'd like him to sign for Toronto because I'm a Toronto fan and he's going to add strength to them.
Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately, if obviously they're not going to pay what he wants, then
see the thing is, Carl Dubas and the Toronto management, they're completely in the driving seat here, because once the season starts and William Nylander doesn't have a contract, he's not earning any money, he's not playing any games, so he's missing out. With the Toronto Maple Leafs signing John Tavares this past offseason, William Nylander doesn't even make it onto the first line power play unit.
No.
Like that's how stacked they are on offense. They've got Tavares, they've got Marner, they've got Kadri, they've got Matthews. They can start the season without William Nylander. And this is very much a situation of I don't think either Nylander and his agent or the Maple Leafs are in the wrong here. I don't think it's, oh well, you should be being better or you should be being better. Both camps, if you want to call it that, both camps are looking after their best interests. This is a purely business thing at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Nylander wants to make sure he gets the money that he thinks he's owed for as long as he thinks he's owed, and the Maple Leafs want to try and save as much money so they can sign Matthews and Marner as well. So, but the problem is, Nylander's going to be the one that loses out here, because the Maple Leafs don't need him right now. If Tavares or Matthews or Marner gets injured, then they'll need him. But if they don't get injured, they could trade him. They could trade him for a defenseman. Do I think they should trade him? No. I don't think they should trade him at all. I don't think they should trade him at this moment in time, or sign him to a short-term bridge deal and then trade him. I mean, if they did, then they'd have to trade for a defenseman, because they need some help on that back end. But I think the hard deadline for all of this is the 1st of December. If Nylander isn't signed by the 1st of December, he cannot play in the NHL this season. Because
someone will sign him.
No, but he won't be able to play in the NHL full stop. So
yeah, Yeah.
I think he'd be able to go overseas because he's technically not on a contract, but he's technically still part of the organization as a restricted free agent. I'm not 100% sure on how that works, but I know that he wouldn't be able to play in the NHL full stop until the next season. So they could trade him at the deadline and then a team sign him for the upcoming season. If it came to that, I don't think it will come to that. I'd like to see Nylander re-signed. I'll be interested to see how much it is. I think Nylander and their agent are going for more 7.5 million. And I think the Maple Leafs want...
That's another thing that gets me is that, like, what do you do with 7.5 million a year? Like, he's got... but they've got so much more money than they possibly ever need.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
Like, again, even in...
They want to live in fancy apartments and drive fast cars, don't they? And that all costs money.
Well, that's just human greed. You don't need any of those things.
Well, yeah, all right, Stalin.
No, but that's what... No, but what I'm saying...
I get you.
Like, if they're bargaining over, like, what, 400k or something in the grand scheme of things, it's like, oh, now I want 7. Well, we're going to offer you 6.5. No, 6.5 million doesn't do it for me.
I get what you're saying, but when you think about the numbers, 6.5 million for 8 years, or 7 million for 8 years. That's an extra 500k every year for 8 years. That's $4 million extra on your contract.
Yeah. So, but still, you're going to end out after 8 years with 50 million. It's like...
Yeah, no, I get it, but we're not professional sportsmen.
Oh, no.
So,
no.
Like, for example, this could be the money that sets them up for life. If they're the best at their sport and other players are getting paid that much money, why shouldn't they? That also comes into it. The salary cap's there for a reason. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens to Nylander. Please let us know in the live chat what you think. Do you think he'll get signed before the start of the season? Do you think he won't? Do you think he'll get traded? If so, who to? What will the return be? Let us know. So, NHL predictions, Chris. NHL predictions.
Yeah.
So, I want to talk about the trophies predominantly.
Yep.
So there's the individual trophies. There's a couple of team trophies I want to talk about. I'm going to start off the President's Trophy. So,
okay.
The President's Trophy, of course, goes to the team that is the top-ranked team at the end of the regular season. Has the most points out of any teams after the 82-game season. Chris, who do you think will win the President's Trophy this season? And feel free to write this down if you want, Chris.
I am doing.
Good.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, was it Nashville last year? Wasn't it Tampa the year before that?
Yes. And remember, the team that wins the President's Trophy is more likely than not going to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen very often. It's the President's Trophy curse, as some might call it.
Yeah, it's the same as the par 3 contest curse at the Masters Golf. They have a par 3 competition on the Wednesday before the main competition, and nobody who's ever won the par 3 has ever gone on to win the main competition.
Do you reckon like most of them just like flunk it after a while? It's like
it's done as a friendly competition. Like they get their kids to take the odd shot and the caddies to take the odd shot. It's done as a kind of friendly competition. Oh, presidents.
Right. Okay. I get it. So the President's Trophy.
Who's had a really good pre-season?
Pre-season means nothing, Chris.
Hey, Nottingham Panthers
Avalanche,
pre-season champions.
2 seasons ago, the Colorado Avalanche went undefeated in the pre-season and had the worst regular season record in the NHL.
Yeah.
By quite a margin. So
yeah, that is true.
Don't ever use pre-season as an indication of how well your team's going to do, because most of the time it's prospects or AHL players.
Don't tell me that. Maple Leafs had a really good pre-season. Don't tell me that.
I think they'll have a good season. Do I think they'll win the President's Trophy? No.
No. I don't know. It's going to be close. I'd like to have...
Okay. Let's...
I'd like it to be a Canadian team, if I'm honest.
Okay. There's maybe 1 or 2 teams that could potentially get it. So, do you think they're going to come from the West or the East?
I think maybe the West, because I think the East is slightly stronger. So they're
Okay.
going to be more competitive, and they'll lose more games against other Eastern teams.
Interesting.
Like I say, I mean, I know more about the Elite League than the NHL.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I can let you have a winner for the. Can we do a winner for the West and a winner for the East? So we get to have two choices essentially.
yeah.
If that makes it easier, I'm
That's
okay
just
with that.
yeah. Is that still for the presidents? Because they've got the
Yeah.
West and East playoff things, haven't they?
Yeah.
President. I think Nashville have kept most of their core,
They have. Yeah.
so they might.
They've lost. What's his name? The guy that got suspended for a quarter of the season.
Yeah.
But he's a bottom 6 player. So. But other than that, yeah, they've pretty much kept everybody together. To be fair.
I mean, I don't think that Vegas will repeat what they did this year.
Okay. Yeah.
To be honest,
I would argue they've gotten better, but I can see what you mean.
Yeah, I think the teams will better know what they're coming up against now.
Yeah. Okay.
They were a bit kind of dark horses, no one really knew, and then they were already out in front and on a roll, and no one could really do anything.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. I get you.
Yeah. Are Washington going to be strong again, potentially?
But remember, this is the President's Trophy, not the Stanley Cup winners.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay.
So just the team that at the end of an 82-game season has the best overall record.
Oh, definitely, it's going to be Arizona. Lol.
I knew you were going to say that.
They just need to sign Liam Kirk. He's on fire.
Yeah, Okay, would you like me to go first then, so we have some time to think?
Yeah, go on then.
Okay, so for the President's Trophy, for the West, I'm going to go with the San Jose Sharks.
Okay.
I'm backing Carlson and Burnsy. I think they have one of the strongest, if not the strongest, defensive core in the NHL right now. And it's not just a defensive core that is strong in the defensive end of the zone. They've got two of the best offensive producing defensemen of their generation. Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson. Erik Karlsson is number 1 and Brent Burns is number 2. Of course, this is all predicated on Erik Karlsson bouncing back from a surgery season last year, which Claude Giroux did, and he had a very similar surgery, I believe. So whether that works or not. And they also have Marc-Edouard Vlasic, who I think is one of the most underrated defensemen in the NHL. He's a very good defensive two-way defenseman. So 3 of their top 6 defensemen, I would argue, are NHL All-Stars. So I could very much see them having, and they've got some solid units up front as well. So I think the San Jose Sharks could win the President's Trophy if the winner is from the West. If it's from the East, I'm backing Tampa. Tampa are stacked.
They are.
They've got.
That was the name that first came to my mind, and then I just started to doubt myself.
Yeah, because they've got. I mean, they've got Stamkos, Kucherov. They've got Point. And these are all people offense. Of course, they've got the depth guys as well, like Killorn. And then their defense, they've got Hedman. They've got Stroman, who's a solid, Anton Stroman. He's a very underrated player as well. He just goes about his business being a good defensive defenseman. So Tampa, they have, Hedman, Stroman, Ryan McDonough, of course, in that mix now. They've got a pretty decent set of players as well. I think, and because they're very much a team that as a unit, they've worked really well. Tampa, they've proven that they can be quite a strong unit of players. And of course, McDonough, he came in at the trade deadline. They've of course got JT Miller as well. He's a great player when used in the right situations. I think Tampa's they're a strong team that have a good core and are doing the right things. So I very much think it's either going to be San Jose or Tampa. What do you think, Chris?
Okay, what's that? Sharks or Lightning, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like it to come from Canada. I'm tempted to go with the Jets potentially.
Yeah, I think that's a good guess. I would.
What are they? They're Eastern Conference, aren't
No,
they?
Western.
A Western Conference. Sorry,
Central Division.
I got my East and West mixed up.
Yeah, they're the West. They're in the Central Division with
Yeah,
Chicago and Minnesota.
yeah, yeah. Like I say, I think the East is more open. I mean, there's good teams in it,
Yeah,
but I mean, teams like Pittsburgh, they tend to do well in the playoffs, but then they're roundabouts in the league. But normally they kind of tail off a little bit. I think
yeah,
you're right with Tampa in the East, I think, but I'll
yeah.
go with something slightly differently, obviously.
Sure. I
Um,
wouldn't be too surprised if Boston got it. To be fair,
yeah,
they've got
Boston are a side that are
good group of
strong.
players there. Good group of players.
Mm, yeah. Although I'd like to go Toronto just because of Toronto.
Oh, go on then.
All right. So what did I say? I said Lightning, Leafs and Jets, didn't
I
I?
mean, the Toronto power play will be deadly. They will score a lot of goals with the man advantage this season.
Yeah.
The only concern I have with them is their defense. It's just not strong enough for a Stanley Cup run. I don't think. I mean, that is kind of the main criticism that people have of the Toronto Maple Leafs at the moment. They've got solid goaltending. They've got solid forwards. They've got a few good defensemen, but they don't have a solid cohesive unit, I don't think.
Yeah, if you're relying on scoring 3-4 goals a night to give yourself a chance of winning, then eventually you're going to come unstuck.
They're going to need to rely on 5 or 6 goals a night to win.
Yeah.
I would think.
Okay, right,
that's
next.
my opinion anyway. Okay, so next trophy. Let's go for the Hart Memorial Trophy.
Oh, blimey, hang on. Right, okay.
I'll read it out to you. Don't worry, I've got the whole list up here.
Yeah, it's the MVP, isn't it, in a sense?
Yes, it's the league MVP. It's an annual award given to the player judged to be the most valuable to his team. The winner is selected in a poll of Professional Hockey Writers Association in all NHL cities at the end of the regular season. Of course, last season it was Connor McDavid, I believe, that won the Hart Memorial Trophy. And quite
Wikipedia is telling me Taylor Hall, or was that the year before?
Oh no, you might be right actually. Because I want to have the list of the players that won it last season, but I also want the descriptions. Bear with me. Yeah, I think you might be right.
I'm on Wikipedia. It says Taylor Hall
had a fantastic year last year. Like that Taylor Hall, Adam Larson trade, I think, that Edmonton made with New Jersey. Like New Jersey have come out solidly with that trade. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. My bad. I was thinking of the Ted Lindsay. My bad. Yeah, Hart Memorial, Taylor Hall.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's a difficult one to go with because it depends on like the team. If you've got a netminder who's just the team doesn't necessarily win anything, but he's stood on his head every night and got them valuable wins, they might get it over someone who's put up 80 points or whatever.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
and won it. So it's a difficult one. There's players that have the potential for a really strong season. Your Line A's, your Matthews.
Yeah.
People like that. I mean it.
But whether they're the most valuable to their team, team. Yeah.
Because it's the most valuable to their team, not like the most valuable in the league.
Yeah.
So you've got to compare players to their individual teams. It's like saying, it's almost like of the years gone by, Lundqvist to the Rangers.
Woo!
Compared to like the league.
Yeah.
Because he's really valuable to them.
Yeah.
But there's so many other teams with decent netminders.
I would say I could see Frederik Andersen winning this next year. Or this year.
Mm-hmm.
That is predicated on the fact, and of course I'm going on about the Leafs again, but I think that's predicated on if the Leafs, for example, if you're right and the Leafs win the President's Trophy, or if they get like a 1 or 2 spot in their division or the conference, Frederik Andersen is going to be a huge part of that.
Yeah.
I could, if it's going to be a goaltender, I would go for Frederik Andersen, provided the Leafs have a solid season like they could do. I could very much see them being, or him being the guy, because he faced the most shots of any goaltender last season by a noticeable margin. I can't remember the exact stats, but I'm not sure that's 100% correct, but I remember hearing something like that. Like, Frederik Andersen, he is a workhorse for the Maple Leafs. He plays a shit ton of games for them as well.
He does.
So, Yeah, I could see Anderson winning that as a goaltender. As for a forward, I mean, I guess you've got to look at, well, Taylor Hall won it last year because he essentially helped his team almost single-handedly get the last spot into the playoffs. He had a fantastic year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Because nothing's happened yet.
Yeah.
You have no clue who's going to be contenders. It could literally be anybody in the league.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think, of course, Connor McDavid could be an interesting one there.
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he won it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got your studs. You know, like you say, you've got your line A's, your wheelers from the Jets. You've got to look at people like Ovechkin,
Crosby,
Malkin,
you know,
Giroux, and you know all those kind of people, your Kessels and what have you. So
your Connor McDavid's, your Nico Hischiers, your
it's
Rasmus
one of these things where
maybe Rasmus Dahlin could be an interesting one for that.
At this point, with absolutely nothing happening, you may as well dip your hand in a hat and pull a name out.
Exactly. Yeah. But this is a prediction, Chris. So make a prediction.
Yeah, no, I know.
Bud.
Okay. Let's make a prediction then. I'm going to go with, for absolutely no reason at all other than it's the name that springs to mind when I think of this sort of stuff, I'm going to go with Eichel.
Jack Eichel. Interesting. Okay. I was thinking Darlene as well, but yeah, Jack Eichel would be, considering the lineup that they have, they're going to rely on him a lot.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, he's going to put up most of their points, I would say. Or at least a good chunk of them.
If he has an 80, 90-point season like Taylor Hall did last season, yeah, I could see Jack Eichel winning that trophy. Especially if the Sabres make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel like the Hart Trophy goes to a player that helped a team make the playoffs that might not have necessarily been there. I kind of feel like that's the overall narrative for that.
Yeah.
But that's very interesting. So... the next one, the Ted Lindsay
so who
Award.
are you going with?
I went for, I'll go Frederick Anderson.
Okay.
Why not?
Yeah. Okay, next one.
Player. So the Ted Lindsay Award for the best player as voted by the NHL Players Association. Last year, it was Connor McDavid that won the trophy. I am going to go with Connor McDavid again.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just an absolute stud. So that's working. Okay, reconnection successful.
Yeah, but the live stream's gone.
I think it's booting back up again. Right, okay.
We're back.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I had a few issues there. We had a few internet issues there. Should be back now. Apologies. We're having apparently we're dropping a lot of frames at the moment. Sorry, guys. Just bear with us. Hopefully it will sort itself out. Okay, it's kind of getting back there. Dropped a fair few amount of frames. Sorry. So, the Ted Lindsay Award, I'm going to go with Conor McDavid. Most outstanding player. I would not be surprised if he won it again. He is a stud. What about you?
Yeah, okay. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised because this is by the Players Association. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be one of the stars. It's gonna be a McDavid, a Crosby, an Ovechkin, something like that.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah. Well, it's for the most outstanding.
So
player.
I don't know. I'll go. Yeah, exactly. I'll go Crosby because otherwise we'll just be deliberating for ages about enough.
Yeah, Crosby. Okay.
Days. We're still on.
Yeah, it's just really bad.
Yeah, we are still on.
I do apologise for this, guys.
Have you dropped the KBS, or is the...
Yeah, we've dropped to like 1,400 kilobytes, and it's usually at 3,500. I can very well imagine that somebody might be streaming something in my house, or doing something with the internet in my house, which isn't very helpful.
Well, I do Lion streams on 800 KBS. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
But I mean, that's just a picture in audio.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, it looks like... Is it going back to normal? I mean, we're getting way more kilobytes than we need right now. Okay, I think we're... Right. Sorry, I'm so sorry about this, guys. I don't know what is happening with my internet tonight. Sometimes it does this. So, okay, now it's completely dropped completely now. Great. Okay.
Yeah, I can... You're really jittery. I barely hear you.
Yeah. This isn't very helpful at all. Right.
Your sister starts streaming.
No, she's at uni, so.
All right. Oh yeah, good point.
Okay. Right. I think we're back. We'll try once more. If anything cuts out, guys, I do apologise. My internet is absolutely like bottling it at the moment by the looks of it. So
If it goes bad again, we'll pick up next week.
exactly. Yeah. So it looks like it's relatively okay now. Looks like we've sorted stuff out. So Ted Lindsay, who did you say for the Ted Lindsay?
I went
Chris?
Crosby in the end.
Crosby. Okay, perfect. Right, let's move on to the next one because we clearly don't have that much time. The Norris Trophy for the
we need
best
to just rattle through these.
defenseman. Norris Trophy for the best defenseman, Chris. Who do you think?
First name pops into my head is Carlson.
Yeah, I'm going Carlson, without a doubt.
All right, we'll both do that because that just the first name popped into my head.
Usually goes to the player, the defenseman that scores the most points. Like they determine that as the best defenseman. I think they should have a trophy for the best defensive defenseman. I don't think being a defenseman is all about putting up points and scoring the most points in a season. That's just me. But there you go. Yeah, I'm going to go Erik Karlsson. I think especially with Burns and he's got a much higher caliber of players. Of course, that might work the other way around. That now that he's with the similar sort of caliber of players, the points that he scores might be more distributed around the rest of the roster. Sure, that is very much a scenario. But he's the best offensive defenseman of his generation, and I don't expect that to change this season.
Yeah.
So you going Karlsson as well, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. The Vezina Trophy for the best goaltender.
Anderson.
I could see Anderson. Yeah, I could see Anderson winning that trophy.
That's what I'm going for.
You're going for Anderson.
Yeah.
I could go for Anderson, but I've already picked him for one. Who won it last season? It was Pecorino, wasn't it?
Rene. Yeah.
It's Rene that won it last year, and Connor Hellebuck and Braden Holtby were the other two, I believe.
Holtby's a shout.
Holtby's a good. Yeah. I am thinking Andre Vasilevsky as well, but then again, he's got a solid team in front of him. So whether he'll be the best goaltender, I don't know. He might have the best record, but whether he's the best goaltender, I don't know.
Do they do it on? How do they decide it? Is it goals against or goals against average?
It's their overall record, shutouts, goals against. Like they pretty much pick like the best three that have roughly like the best stats, and then decide between them. Because I don't like to choose it based on like because there's a lot of different values that go into having the best goaltender.
Well, that's the.
Because I mean, you could have a stud goaltender that has no defense in front of him, and he ends up having an awful record.
Yeah.
Like you can have a solid goaltender, but they can only steal you so many games. You know what? I'm going to go completely out of left field here.
Go on then.
Carey Price.
Okay.
Carey Price. I mean, I think this is all premeditated on the fact that the Canadians would have to make the playoffs, but my vote for the best goaltender of the year is going to be Carey Price. He's going to have a lot of work in front of him, and I think he'll be up to the task.
Alrighty then. Next.
Anderson. My bad.
I went Anderson.
So, the Calder Memorial Trophy for the Rookie of the Year.
Oh, blimey. Yeah.
I've got my vote for this one immediately.
I have not kept up with the rookies at all.
Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks. He is going to destroy the league this year. He is a stud. He is the real deal, Elias Pettersson. Was it Petterstrom? How do you pronounce his name? Max. Hi, Max. You'll know in the chat, won't you? How do I pronounce it? Is it Pettersson? Petterstrom? I've seen a couple of people pronounce it different ways, so I'm not quite sure. But he is a stud. Swedish Hockey League MVP. Playoff MVP. Point scorer galore. He had a great preseason as well. Like,
where did he get drafted?
He's the real deal. He's going to be there. If he doesn't win it, he's definitely going to.
Where was he drafted?
He drafted in the first round 2 years ago. I think he played preseason with Vancouver last season, but then they sent him back to the SHL for a bit more seasoning and playing against men as opposed to sending him to juniors. And he played in one of the best European leagues. and was the MVP, like Young Player of the Year, playoff MVP. There you go. Peterson, Peterson, Elias Peterson, Elias Pettersson. You know what I mean. So yeah, who do you think,
However it's pronounced.
Mm.
Yeah, it's again, I've had to do some quick research into this. So yeah, you've gone for the
Dahlin.
No, because you're telling me that, so it means it's going to be awful.
No, I there's a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean he was drafted first overall.
He is a guy that will come into Buffalo and play 25 minutes a night immediately. For an 18-year-old defenseman to do that, that's unheard of.
And I think especially around that Buffalo squad as well.
Yeah, they're very much shaping that squad around Dahlin and Jack Eichel.
Yeah, I'll go with Dahlin then. Why not?
And Ristolainen. But yeah, Rasmus Dahlin. I think that's a good choice. I mean, I did kind of give it to you, but there you go.
Yeah, next.
Okay, the Frank J. Selke Trophy for the best defensive forward. So this was won last season by Anze Kopitar.
Forward who's best excels in the defensive aspects. Yeah. They're really coming up with so many here, aren't they?
No, it's a forward that they basically play a really strong 200-foot game. And it's of course named after Frank J. Selke, who was like a legend at doing that. So I have my vote, and it's based on the history of the trophy predominantly, because there's several players that this is one of the trophies that essentially rotates all the time. Like it rotates between like 3 or 4 different players.
Oh, so you have a pretty good idea of who's going to.
Yeah, I think is going to be Patrice Bergeron of the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, that's a shout, yeah.
Yeah, he has won that trophy.
Yeah.
I think he's either tied... I think he's tied for the most wins of that trophy by a player in their career. Pavel Datsyuk won that trophy several times when he was playing. And he was brilliant at just like taking the puck away from opposing players. And his stick handling was incredible. Anze Kopitar could win it again, maybe. I think he's a very good defensively minded forward. But I think Patrice Bergeron's going to win it this season. I think he'll break the record as well.
If you go Bergeron, then I'll go Kopitar just to be different.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's fair. Those are the two that I'd have up the top there to win that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Lady Byng Trophy for the most gentlemanly player.
Oh, now this is just... We can't predict who's going to show the most sportsmanship.
You can also potentially predicate this on penalty minutes. So like a player that goes a huge amount of games without having any penalty minutes. Because I think penalty minutes comes into it to an extent. Last season's winner was William Karlsson of the Vegas Golden Knights. So, yes. This is quite a tough one actually to predict. To be fair,
how many more of these do you have?
Yeah, the most gentlemanly player,
combined with a high standard of playing ability.
Yes, most gentlemanly player.
I'd move on if I were you.
Yeah, it's quite a tough one. I'm gonna make a prediction. I am going to go with. Actually, it is quite tough, actually. Most gentlemanly player.
Oh, dear.
I am going to go with... I'm
trying to think of people that do a lot in the community as well.
Oh, no, that's a different award.
Oh, my days. How many more of these have we got?
Well, let me check. We got a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... 6, then seven.
Can't do another 7 predictions. I haven't got enough space on my sheet of paper.
Well, turn it over. Then I'm going to go with Brian Boyle.
Okay.
Do I think he's a gentlemanly? I think he's quite a gentlemanly player. Nate Schmidt. Oh wow. Yeah, I guess he could if he does clear all of this stuff. But no, I'm gonna go with Brian Boyle. I think
David Clark. Lol.
Yeah, David Clark. Or I would go for Jesper Fast. I do quite like Jesper Fast.
Hmm.
New York Rangers player.
Yeah.
He's a very honest hockey player. And I like that. I like honest hockey players. But whether he'll get like 40 goals in a season and actually be considered for the trophy, probably not. So,
Yeah.
do you want to make a quick random guess, Chris? Or
I may as well just go with Carlson again, because otherwise we're just going to be here all night.
Sure. I'm up for that. Okay, the next one is the Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy. This is for perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. Now, this is quite a tough one. Last year, this is kind of the reason why I voted for this for Brian Boyle in the last one. Brian Boyle won the Bill Masterton Trophy last year, and that was due to him going through some very serious medical conditions and coming out the back end. My vote for this one's going to be Chris Kreider of the New York Rangers, because he had blood clots in his leg last year, and they kept him out of playing for a very long time, and I think if he has a fantastic season this year, which I hope he does, I think he will, I think he deserves the trophy. Don't know about you.
Yeah, this is where you're reaping the rewards of not having a job and being able to look this up all day, every day.
I knew all of this last season when I was doing a degree, thank you very much. And I'm getting my piece of paper to prove it next weekend. So, read it and weep, son.
Your graduation's late.
Yep.
Mine was in like July. Mine was in July. Yours is really late.
It's because the uni that we're coupled with, if anybody has to do resits, then they can graduate with us. So like.
If anyone had to do resits at ours, you got to graduate 6 months later in a small room with nobody there.
Exactly. Whereas we're like, hey, come graduate with us. We're cool.
So who were you going for it?
Chris Kreider,
wasn't it?
New York Rangers.
Yeah.
Who are you going for?
Oh, I don't know. Perseverance, sportsmanship, dedication to hockey. It's that perseverance thing, because if you're talking sportsmanship and dedicated to hockey, you do go with someone that does a lot of charity work as well.
No, Chris, that's another trophy.
Oh, for crying out loud.
That's the next one. That's in 3 trophies' time.
I don't know.
Go Brian Boyle.
Oh, all right.
I mean, he might win it again. I don't know.
Knowing my luck, 8 months down the line, just before we come back to this, I'll lose the piece of paper.
Yeah, you probably will, to be fair. Okay, so the next one, the Jack Adams Award for Coach of the Year. Who do you think it's going to be?
Well, that normally goes to like one of the teams that goes deep into the playoffs, doesn't it?
This one, the last one, went to Gerard Gallant, who is the head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights, and I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely fair.
Alright.
I'm going to go with Jim Montgomery of the Dallas Stars.
Okay.
They are a team that are primed for the playoffs. They've got a new head coach this season who has just joined from the NCAA junior division, the college hockey division, and Tomo. I think Jim Montgomery is going to lead that team into a deep playoff run. I do. I think the Dallas Stars are ready for it.
Okay. I'm going to go
Mike Babcock, head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
No, actually, I wasn't going to do that.
David Quinn, head coach of the New York Rangers.
I wasn't going to do that either.
Damn it. Worth a try.
I'm going to go with Paul Maurice.
Paul Maurice of the Jets.
The Jets.
Okay.
He's been there now for 4 years.
Yep.
I think the Jets will go deep, and he started on my birthday, so go for it.
Fair enough. All right. I'll allow it. Okay, then we move on to the General Manager of the Year.
Oh my god.
This one, of course, went to George McPhee last year of the Vegas Golden Knights, unsurprisingly. In terms of General Manager of the Year, I would go for Kyle Dubas of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think he's done a great job pulling in the players that he's pulled in, and some of the off-the-ice stuff that he's done as well, I think is great. Like, he hired, what is her name, Haley Winkenheiser? That might not be exactly right, but she's a one of the best female hockey players to have ever played, and she's been hired for the Leafs PR. Like, they're very much, Carl Dubas and his team are very much taking steps to kind of revolutionise the hockey world and the behind the scenes stuff and who's in charge of stuff. And of course, he's a very young GM as well. So I'm actually, I can see why Leafs fans are excited in their organisation again. They've got a great head coach, they've got great general manager, they've got great people behind the scenes. And I think Carl Dubas is one of these guys paving the way for some changes in the league, whether he wants to or not. So yeah, I think he'll get general manager of the year, especially if the team does well this season as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some steals in terms of trades and things like that. General manager, I mean, who's doing well? What I would like to see from good general managers are ones who connect with the fan base and the community.
Yep.
Rather than suing the fan base and separating themselves from the community.
Bit of a dig there, Chris.
No, not at all. I see what you mean there with Dubas. I'm tempted to go with him as well.
I think another GM that could be quite good is Lou Lamoriello, for example. I think he could be, like, dependent on how well the Islanders do this season. Of course, he brought in Barry Trotz to be the head coach. Of course, they lost Tavares, so this is the first time they've been in a post Tavares era for like 10 years. So I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay Lightning Julien Brisebois. Okay, interesting.
Because he's only just come in. Yeah, he's only just come in. I think they're going to be strong again. So
Steve Eisman was a fantastic general manager. He was one of the best. He was so good at negotiating as well. He really knew how to do that job well. Like, Tampa lost a good one in Eisman. But yeah, like, it'll be very interesting to see how Brisebois does, actually. Okay, so we're getting very close to the end now, Chris. We've got 3 more to talk about. 3 more, that's it.
Does this including the team ones, or are these all still individual?
No, these are individual ones. The team ones, there's a couple more that I want to do based on team ones, but we'll talk about them in a minute. We're almost done, don't worry. Then the King Clancy Memorial Trophy for leadership and humanitarian efforts. So this is the one that I was referencing, like, stuff within the community. Daniel and Henrik Sedin were the 2 that won this. Apparently it was a double award because they can never seem to do anything by themselves in the NHL. Apparently.
Yeah.
So the Sedin twins managed to win that last season. I don't really know who I would go for this one. It's a guy that's very active in the community, I guess. Very active for humanitarian stuff. The problem is quite a lot of players are active in that stuff. Yeah. And it's encouraged and sometimes even enforced, I would argue, that they have to get involved with this stuff because it's part of their job. PK Subban. You know what? PK Subban's a really good shout. I'm going to go PK Subban for this.
Okay.
That's a really, really good one. Oliver in the chat, thank you very much for that. That's a really good one. He's still giving money to the Montreal General Hospital. He holds a annual hockey tournament at the end of the summer every year for kids and stuff at the Bell Centre. Like, he's still very active in the Montreal community and the Nashville community. Like, fair play to PK Subban. I think he's a great role model off the ice.
Yeah, I can remember the one player I would have given it to a few seasons ago was would have been Scott Hartnell when he did that. Every time I get knocked down in the season, I'll give 10.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we need to see more of them in the NHL. Every time, I believe Jerome McGinley did that when he was playing. Like, every time he scored a goal, he'd donate $1,000 or $10,000 to something. Which
Max has gone for Letang, and that's a good shout.
Yeah, Chris Letang's a good one.
I may as well put that down, otherwise we are just going to keep.
Yeah, go on then.
Going back and forth.
Okay, so we've got 2 ones. There's one for the fewest goals against team, but I'm not really going to go for that, to be honest. The Marc Messier NHL Leadership Award, so a community leader. So the best community leader or somebody that should be recognised for their work in the community. Last year it went to Derek Englund for the Vegas Golden Knights primarily as a result of his efforts and the Vegas Golden Knights' efforts after the shooting in Vegas just before the season started. So it's a year ago today, I believe, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, I don't really know. Like, this is a tough one to kind of predict as well. I would say somebody like it's most likely going to be a captain of a team. I would say I'm going to go Sidney Crosby. Why not? He's always been quite good with community stuff, I think.
Yeah, you see, I was going to go for Ovechkin for the same reason.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Sorted. Okay, and then the last individual trophy we have here. We're almost there. Almost there. The Maurice Rocket Richard Trophy for the top goal scorer. See, I thought we'd finish on a slightly easier one. So, the top goal scorer in the league this season.
Who won it last season?
Alexander Ovechkin.
Oh, Ovechkin did, yeah.
I don't think you'd be bloody surprised at all, to be fair.
No. See, that's what I was going to go with, but he won it last year. I'm not sure he'll win it again.
I could see him winning it again. My other guess would be Patrick Laine. I think we might have the heir apparent to the Rocket Richard Trophy now. Laine's been in the league for 2 seasons now. I think he's found his goal scoring form.
Yeah.
Is that including the playoffs? No, it's not. It's just regular season. Who scores?
Who do you want to go with then?
What's that?
Who do you want to go with?
Patrick Laine. You can go Ovi if you want.
Yeah, I'll go Ovi because I was between those two. So,
I mean, Ovi's one of those players that you know how he's going to score like 75% of his goals, but you still can't stop it.
Yeah, I know.
Everything you want to try and stop it, but he'll score at least one every game or every 2 games like that.
Yeah.
He's so good at it. Okay, so they're all the individual trophies. And we did a few team trophies there, I think, as well, because we did the President's Trophy as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we just need to you know what, let's just finish off with the last proper trophy. Let's just knock this one out the park, Chris. The Stanley Cup.
Toronto, done.
Wishful thinking there, mate.
No, Toronto.
The Toronto Maple Leafs to win the Stanley
Cup. Your franchise mode called it.
That's a very good point, actually. I'm gonna go with. I think the final is gonna be San Jose Tampa, and I mean if it goes based on like predictions and how strong the teams are, I could very much see it being a San Jose Tampa series, and I think San Jose might actually finally win their first Stanley Cup.
Sharks. Okay.
We had Washington win it last year. The Sharks came pretty close a couple of years ago, and they've still got the majority of the players on that roster. So they've got experience in the postseason. Maybe the Jets make it that far. I could see the Jets winning it as well, actually, to be honest.
Well, I've written Sharks down now, so
I'm gonna go with the Sharks. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Sharks. Okay. So.
Liam Kirk.
Are you actually going with Maple Leafs?
Yeah, I'm actually going with Toronto.
All right, fair enough. I think we should have an updated prediction when the playoffs actually comes round.
Yeah, do that.
Because it's far too difficult to predict any of these really accurately at the beginning of the season. Like, loads of these other sites are like, oh, NHL experts are going to predict it. Like, you can never predict before the season started correctly.
No.
It's more luck if you get it right, to be honest. It's like 50% research, 50% luck. Like you've got to have so many different factors go the right way for your predictions to be correct at the beginning of the season. They can be educated guesses, but they're still guesses, you know. Okay, so I think that's the end of the NHL stuff. Feel free to let us know any of the predictions you might have wanted to make, any of the thoughts that you had. Let us know in the chat. If you've got any questions for us based on our predictions, let us know in the chat, and we'll take a look at the end of the stream. We're coming towards the end of the stream now. So we move on. Just a bit of news. I like to call this... I've got a new name for the segment, Chris. I think you'll like it. Kirk's Corner. And essentially, this is just the part... This is a quick part of the podcast I'd like to introduce every week, where we just update you with how well Liam Kirk's doing in the...
I can do that. He's bossing it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's doing really well. He has currently played 4 games with the Peterborough Petes, who have a 3-1-0 season record. They lost to the Hamilton Bulldogs last game yesterday, which stopped their undefeated streak.
7-1.
Yes, it was a 3-game winning streak until that pretty rough loss. And Liam Kirk has 2 goals and 1 assist in 4 OHL games. So he's 3 points in 4 games, almost a point per game. He's playing perfectly. He's playing first line minutes every night by the looks of it for the Peterborough Pete. So he's getting as much ice time as possible, key situations, and he's producing. So he's doing fabulously. Love to see Kirk keep doing well. We'll update you on Kirk's Corner again next week, I guess. It's just a quick segment. I quite like it. Just because
you need to get a jingle for it.
I do, I really do. I just think like some people might forget to keep updated or might not know how to keep updated. So I think it's good if we do that, you know. Okay, then one more thing before we switch over to viewer questions for the last 10 minutes or so. So, people that are a part of the Odd Men Out Fantasy Hockey League, except Max, sort your lineups out. So make sure, just to let you know, you can change your lineups every day. So make sure you're putting in players that are playing on those days into the lineup, moving the players that aren't playing into the benches. Okay? Just make sure you do. I've already sorted all of mine out until next Monday.
I haven't.
All I had to do was just chuck all of my players that were playing on that day into the lineup and then save that, go to the next day, do the exact same. It took me like 3 minutes. So, really doesn't take that long.
Yeah, I've not done
that. It really takes like 3 minutes. So, just get on it and make sure that your fantasy teams have players that are playing. Make sure you don't leave any players that might have been playing on the bench because you're not going to gain any points for them. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Fantasy League. We'll actually have some stuff to talk about next week in terms of like how teams are doing, look at the standings and stuff like that. So that'll be quite interesting to do. But yeah, just make sure you sort all of that stuff. Make sure any players that have been put on waivers and sent down to the EIHL or that have retired recently. I know Radim Verbata and Scott Hartnell have just retired today. And that's literally like between the time that I was setting this up and the stream going live. So make sure you get that sorted out as well. But yeah, fantasy hockey, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be pretty good. I'm looking forward to having a full season of fantasy hockey and actually keeping with it for a season, hopefully. Yeah, anything you want to add on fantasy sports, Chris?
No, not really.
Didn't think there would be. Perfect. So, okay, I think we've come to viewer questions. So, I like to call this section of the podcast the last call, you know? just get out your last questions. This is sort of the time that we definitely like engage with the chat. Because I do like to engage with the chat during the stream, but I feel like it can kind of get us off on a tangent sometimes, and like we'll start another conversation that will last another 25 minutes if we keep looking at the chat every single time.
Basically, you've got like a minute to type your questions out, and then we'll pick the ones that are in there by that time, answer them, and then that'll be it.
And the most interesting questions, like just because we don't pick your question doesn't mean it's awful. We just might not have enough time to say it. We've been going for almost an hour and 45 minutes already.
Also, use the hashtag.
Don't use the hashtag. Don't use the hashtag. I'll find out a better hashtag. It'd probably just be icing on the skate, to be fair. Because I did like IOTS podcast. It turns out there is another podcast called IOTS. While we wait for some questions, I'm actually going to look this up. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was like some religious podcast.
Yeah, it was something like that. I wanted. It was an up-and-coming podcast which provides a forum where men and women can come together to understand each other.
Sexes.
But they haven't posted for 5 years.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I want the IOTS podcast back. They have a website. Oh, this is cool. Oh, the site can't be reached. Oh, I really want to look at the interpretation of the sexes. God damn it. Okay, so we have our first question in. That's probably copyright, isn't it?
Probably.
Have any of your Elite Ice Hockey League predictions and opinions changed?
You might want to rethink Coventry at the bottom.
I might want to rethink Belfast at the top. I mean, still plenty of hockey to play. And teams have their up and down moments. I don't really want to change any of my predictions so far.
No, me neither.
One, because I can't really remember half of them. And two, because it's too early in the season. I think that's a good thing to come and revisit back at like Christmas or New Year. You know?
Yeah.
Sort of, we will be, like a couple of months into the season. We'll be about halfway through the season at that point. So we can go, okay, we've had half the season played. Are our predictions looking good, or should we rethink them? So, yeah, that's a good one. I like that, though, Ben. Appreciate that, bud.
Quick one
Hotshot,
from
if you are coaching...
Andy, because
Oh,
that's
go.
a 2-second thing I
Yeah,
can
go.
answer. Why did Chris pick Toronto to win it all? Because I'm a Toronto fan and I couldn't think of anything better.
And because he doesn't really watch the NHL. I'm going to make
That
him though
too.
this season. Don't worry. I'll make you watch it this season. And then Max. Hello, Max. How are you? If you are coaching the Sharks, do you stack Carlson and Burns or spread the talent? Well, I mean, I guess Carlson and Burns will be having a lot of power play time together. I wouldn't imagine that... who's the head coach of the San Jose Sharks? I know who this is. Pete DeBoer. Yeah, Pete DeBoer, I believe it is. I wouldn't imagine that he'd put one of them on a power play unit and one of them on the other. That just doesn't make any sense to me. You want them on the power play one so they can just smack in goals from the point every 5 seconds. Do you put Burns and Carlson on the top pair? The only thing that would make me hesitate is they're both right-handed shots.
I wouldn't. I'd spread it.
Yeah, I guess the question is I'd either have Vlasic and Carlson on the top pair and Burns on the second, or Vlasic and Burns on the top, then Carlson on the second, or Carlson and Burns on the top. I think Vlasic should go on the top pair because he's the left-handed shot, and that adds a different one-timer opportunity from the point there, and he's very responsible in his defensive end of the zone, or of the ice, sorry. So I would imagine that one of them goes on the first pair, one of them goes on the second. But I guess the question is which ones you put where. I guess the good thing is like if one of them's playing really well and scoring loads of points, you can stick them on the first pair. If they're struggling a little bit, then stick the other one on the first pair. Like you've quite literally got a 1-1 punch there as opposed to a 1-2 punch. So
I think I mean I would spread it, but then there's situations where maybe if it's late and you need a goal or you need a big shift or something, you can put them out together.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be better each to quarterback a power play? Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. But also, they're going to have their most talented players and their most highly hockey IQ'd players on the first pair. They're going to have the Pavelskis and the Coutures and the Thorntons on the first pair, I would imagine, or the first power play unit. Sorry. So I could very much imagine because Carlson could essentially on the power play play a forward position. He could be a fourth forward on a power play. He plays like that quite a lot anyway. So you could have Burns quarterback the power play and Carlson sort of move further up the ice to be a forward. I would think anyway. Maybe they do slot it 1-2. But then again, that's the question of like with the defensive pair units. Which one do you put in the first pair? Which one do you put in the second? These are good questions. These are probably some of the best questions that Pete DeBoer has to answer. Like, I wouldn't complain. Like, you could have the question, which players should we trade because we're having an awful season? Or, which of these generational defensive talents do I stick on the first pair and which do I stick on the second? There's tougher stuff he's probably worse stuff that he's going to have to think about as the season goes on. Another good question here. Does Matt Duchene leave the Ottawa Senators? Yes. I think everybody's looking for a way out of the Ottawa Senators. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sorry, but the Ottawa Senators are an absolute train wreck. Like, wow. I do not know what the Ottawa Senators are doing. Eugene Melnick, he has screwed those fans over for a long time.
At least when Ottawa are doing bad, it gives me bragging rights in my family.
Yeah, fair point. Where does Matt Duchene go? Pittsburgh has been suggested. Whether they have the salary cap for that or not, of course, is a big question. I don't know. Where would Matt Duchene go? Well, he'd go to a team that's looking for a second-line centre. He's not a first-line centre, I don't think. They're definitely looking for a second-line guy. I don't know. Like, where would you put Matt Duchene? Pittsburgh has been a place that's been suggested. Essentially, it's Minnesota, maybe. Yeah, that could be a good call, perhaps. A team that is lacking that second-line centre talent. He's essentially going to be a player that bolsters your top six, but he's not going to be a first-line talent. Like, Montreal could be a good place for Duchene to go, purely for the fact that they actually need some bloody centres. Like, Kotkaniemi, he's made the roster out of training camp, and he's looking like he could be pretty decent, but if they were looking for a first-line centre that could potentially help them out, Duchene could be a guy to go for. He's not going to really want to play for a basement-dwelling team by the sounds of it. I mean, he wanted to leave the Avalanche because they were a basement dweller, and he wanted to go to a contending team. He leaves. The Avs make the playoffs. They have the best point exchange between 2 seasons in the NHL ever, I think, or one of the best. Between 2 seasons ago to last season, once Duchesne has left, and then he goes to Ottawa and they have an absolutely abysmal season. So I thought that was quite funny, to be honest. I think that's karma. But maybe the Panthers, the Carolina Hurricanes could always do with some extra talent up front. I think I'm very interested to see. I think Matt Duchesne will be traded. Whether he's traded at the deadline during the season, I'm not that sure.
He needs to go to one of those teams who's on the cusp of the playoffs.
Yes.
That just need that last little bit to get in.
Which is why I think the Panthers would be a good pickup for that, because he'd be going to a team that didn't make the playoffs last year and could potentially jump into the playoffs with something like that. Or he could go to the Minnesota Wild, because they're a team that make the playoffs, they just don't do anything when they're in there. So they're looking for that extra little bit to push them over the edge. So, yeah, maybe. The Rangers, I don't think so. And the Rangers being the team that I know the most about and the team that I follow the most. The reason I say that is because, first of all, you'd probably have to give up quite a lot for Matt Duchesne. And that would probably... That goes against the rebuild that they've been setting up. Erik Karlsson was a guy, the Rangers were interested in pursuing him, or the fans were like, yeah, go get Karlsson. Then you'd just be giving up loads of the pieces that you picked up for your rebuild anyway. So it's kind of counterproductive to pick up a guy in his prime when your team's not going to be ready for the next few years, you know? So I don't think he'll go to the Rangers. I don't think he'll go, unless the rebuild is ahead of schedule, then I don't think that will happen. They'll give up a lot in terms of assets. They might give up a guy that could potentially break out the next season. I quite like the prospect pool that the Rangers have at the moment. They haven't had a prospect pool like this since I pretty much joined or started following the NHL, because they basically made the playoffs every single year except this last season. They made the Stanley Cup Finals. They made the Eastern Conference Finals. They've had to give up loads of prospects every single year pretty much to have a good playoff run. So I quite like the fact that they're getting lots of prospects and seeing which ones are working and then sticking them into the lineup. It could work, but I think that kind of goes against what they're doing, wanting to bring younger players into the lineup. So, I don't know. Will Ilya Kovalchuk be effective? What do you think, Chris? Ilya Kovalchuk, of course, spent the last 4 or 5 seasons with SKA St. Petersburg of the Continental Hockey League and was a very productive player, I should say, for SKA. He was the captain of the team for a point as well, and he led them to back-to-back Gagarin Cup championships and a regular season championship last year. He played well. He played well in the second best league in the world. He's 35 years old, but what do you think, Chris? Do you think he can bounce back into the NHL? What do you think?
He'll put some points up. I don't think he's gonna, set the league on fire.
No. I think he's good for 20-25 goals maybe. I think he'll be a good second line. He'll produce second line points, I would think. I could imagine him having a 40-50 point season this year, which for a 35-year-old that hasn't been in the league for 5 years, that's pretty good going.
Yeah.
I wouldn't complain with that at all. If they're expecting him to score a point per game, I think they're asking too much of him. I really do. And the last question, the Tom Wilson hit, I think we'll go into that next episode. I haven't actually watched that yet, so I want to make sure I've watched it properly and had time to sort of think about it and make sure I give a informed opinion as opposed to just off the cuff. But yeah, Max, we'll look at that next episode. Are the Minnesota Wild in a make or break season? If they don't perform, do they blow the team up and trade players away? I could see why you'd think that. I could agree with that. Yeah, the Minnesota Wild are in a make or break season. They've kind of been on the playoff push for the last 3, 4, 5 years, if you want to call it that, and it's just resulted in first or second round exits. It's very much, they seem very reminiscent of the New York Rangers, talking from what I know. The Rangers a couple of seasons ago. We're making it to the playoffs, but we're getting eliminated in the second round. Oh, not last season, but the season before we made it to the playoffs and got eliminated in the first round. I think there does come a time where a team needs to go, okay, with the players that we've got, with the system that we've got in place, it's just not going to work out. And their head coach, Oh, who's the head coach again? Is it? It's not Ken Hitchcock because he's retired now. Bruce Boudreau, that's it. Bruce Boudreau. He's always been known as a very good regular season coach, but come the playoffs, he absolutely collapses, and that's been very evident in the Minnesota Wild, or his time with the Minnesota Wild, and with the Minnesota Wild in the last few years. So, yeah. Like you say, Andy, we thought Chicago was the kryptonite. Yeah, there were 2 or 3 straight seasons where the Wild were eliminated by the Blackhawks when they were on their Stanley Cup runs. But no, it wasn't that. They just choked. So whether that's a case of they need to blow the roster up, I think they've been trying to kind of patch it together with duct tape for the last few seasons, and I think eventually it's all going to come falling down. I think that they need to blow up. Keep the young players, keep the players that have the promising chance. The problem is they have Parise and Ryan Suter who are on some monster contracts. So whether they actually get moved anywhere, I highly doubt it. They may have to wait till the end of those big contracts before they start thinking about a rebuild. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in Minnesota, though. So, Chris, anything to add on that last one?
I mean, all teams, as we've said before, go, up and down through rebuilds and all the rest of it.
Especially in a salary cap era.
Yeah. I think they might have to make a deep playoff run, probably into the final 4.
Yeah.
To not blow the team up and trade everyone away.
And I personally see that not happening. I
don't
think they're going to do it. I mean, Washington have been ridiculed for the last however many years for losing out in the first or second round. Maybe this year is Minnesota's year, we never know. That's the beautiful thing about sports. But yeah, it's coming up to 9 o'clock. We've been streaming for just under 2 hours. I think this is the perfect time to finish up. I think what's pretty awesome is this stream, the 4th episode in the Icing on the Skate. It's our 1-month anniversary, Chris, of the Icing on the Skate podcast. Isn't that great?
Isn't it? Yeah.
Isn't that lovely? Here's to many more months to come.
Well, yeah, I mean, the season's only just started.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. I'm just hoping people watch it so we can carry it on, So, yes, that will be the end of the Icing on the Skate podcast for the 1st of October, Season 1, Episode 4. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Thank you very much, Chris, for joining me once again.
Not a problem.
And we will see you all next Monday at 7 p.m. See you later.
Woo.